Long Island Boat and Fishing Show is back at the Nassau Coliseum, March 13th through 15th. Long Island's top dealers will be there with huge savings on boats, tackle, personal watercraft, and the latest electronics. This show has it all. Children will be entertained by Twiggy, the water skiing squirrel. Enjoy free face painting. Plus, on Saturday and Sunday, the first 100 kids get a free life vest, free parking all weekend, and Friday, it's free Heroes Day admission for military and first responders. 3 days only, March 13th through 15th. Visit nyboatshows.com for details.
It's Another Side of Midnight.
Political humorist TJ McCormick.
Now, to the Bernard McGurk Studios,
here's TJ McCormack.
I can't believe I heard that either.
The hidden layer of our existence revealed. Walter Sterling from the Red Apple Audio Network.
There you go. That's how it sounds. Another Side of Midnight, Walter Sterling, Red Apple Audio Networks. Good evening. This is the biggest all-night show in American radio. And from the West Coast, Robert Clotworthy. Robert Clotworthy, you know Robert. You know him.
The hidden layer of our existence revealed. Walter Sterling from the Red Apple Audio Network.
The voice of ancient aliens. The voice of the curse of Oak Island Gold. The man who has revealed more secrets than any other voiceover star in American media. How many seasons has Ancient Aliens been on, Robert?
Yeah, that's weird. Let me turn off the monitor.
Rob, you're on the air. Robert?
Yeah, I'm on the air. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can always hear you, Robert. You're
okay,
in our
fantastic.
head 24 hours a day. We always hear Robert Clotworthy's voice. Good evening, sir. How many seasons has Ancient Aliens been on?
We are in our 18th season now, and we've already been renewed for season 19. So we're close to 300 episodes in already.
Are you speaking to me on a normal mic or the really overpriced Neumann mic?
No, this is just a Sennheiser 416. So you know, I've got a U87 off to the side, but I decided to go with the 416 tonight.
Do you keep them dust covered all day?
Oh, absolutely. Of course.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? Yes.
Now, last week on the show, I don't know if you remember exactly what it was, but I sure do. You revealed a secret from the ancient alien archaeologist, that in a conversation with archaeologists about the pyramid, you revealed an amazing factoid.
Yeah, you know, and as a matter of fact, this is a fellow who has become a friend of mine, a fellow named Joe Alva. He owns a company in Florida called Poseidon Industries, and he is probably one of the country's leading experts on stone cutting. In fact, I've introduced him to the producers of Ancient Aliens, and I think we're going to have him on the show. And he's been to these sites. He's been to Machu Picchu. He's been to the Great Pyramids. And I was on a podcast with him along with a group of other experts in the field of stone cutting, and the subject of the Great Pyramids in Egypt came up. And he started to tell me what his experience was and what his observations were about the Great Pyramid, because he actually brought with him a stone mason's level. And he said that the cuts are so precise that they are perfect within fractions of a millimeter. And, you know, there's a couple of million stones that are in the Great Pyramid. And he said, first of all, you know, where do you get these stones? To cut it that perfectly is nearly impossible. And then you have to think about rotating the stones, because you do one side, now you got to do another side. Then you got to do another side. You got 6 sides of these blocks that are weighing, 30 to 50,000 pounds each. And if they're not exactly right, if it's off by a little bit, it just magnifies as you go higher. In fact, he told me, he says, if it was off, you wouldn't have the Great Pyramid of Giza. It would be more the Leaning Pyramid of Giza. And he said, how did they compact the sand to establish some kind of a foundation to build these pyramids? And what was really interesting, when he looked at him, he said it almost looked, to his eye, that they were intentionally distressed on the outside to appear, I guess, more primitive than they actually are, because the precision that's required on cutting all those 6 sides is so precise, so perfect, that it didn't make a lot of sense to him why that outer side was not as perfect. In fact, I spoke to him today, and he said it almost looked like it was stamped because there's a similarity amongst a lot of these blocks. That it almost like was, you put a veneer on a wall where they give you, 6 or 7 stone that appear to be stone, and you put them all together, and they look like they're just arbitrarily put together. But in fact, it's a pattern. So it was very, very interesting and illuminating and eye-opening to me. That's for sure.
Robert Clotworthy revealing that the pyramids may have been built to look older, even older than they are, to look more distressed than they were, because of the challenge of creating so many precision stones. It was easier, or by design, to have thousands of stones, rough, unfinished, like the next layer underneath your carpet. When you put down carpet, there's a subfloor, like a whole. It looks like a subfloor. And then you said something just now that, thanks to Ancient Aliens, I knew what you were referring to, but I think it's worth going over. You said the pyramids are 6-sided.
Well, each block has 6 sides. You've got the 4 long sides and then the 2 ends. So there's 6 sides that have to be absolutely perfect. But you are correct in that the pyramids, it's not 4 sides. Each side has kind of angles in a little bit. I was looking at it at pictures of it today. And he also mentioned how challenging it is to have the tip of that pyramid right in the dead center. Can you imagine that? What kind of precision it would take to build something that high with over 2 million blocks and to have it work out to be exactly perfectly in the center? And that's with primitive technology that they supposedly had 4,000 years ago when they were building these things. I know, you're speechless. It's crazy when you start thinking about it. He told me it's challenging to deliver a countertop to people. Right. And this guy invented a machine that is the most expensive, quickest, most efficient way of cutting countertops that he sells for well into the 7 figures to people. So he's an inventor himself. He really understands it. And he says, with today's technology, we could not do it. I had 6 of the top guys on this panel, and they said we couldn't imagine how a pyramid could be built like that.
One of the theories that was popular for about 8 months was that those stones were not hewn. They were not quarried. It was from a mold, that there was a stone-like substance that was put into a mold and hardened. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. He says it almost appears like that. Right. And also, here's another question. If you have all these stones, 2 million plus stones, where's all the debris that's left over? What happened to it?
That one hasn't bothered me because they've had 4,000 years to get rid of the debris. But I was more curious about how they all came to the conclusion that those were not slaves. Do we know, or were they just well-fed and well-housed slaves?
Well, I looked up on Wikipedia. They claim that the pyramid was built in 26 years. I can't imagine that.
No.
I mean, we're trying to build a train to nowhere here in California. We're a couple of decades in, and we haven't done anything. So,
Robert Clotworthy is obviously in California, and,
yes.
And they're haunted by what's happened with that train. I think, did he finally stop? Did he finally say, we're not going to build the train?
I think we're still going for some reason.
Now, I know that you're fascinated by the moon. You like to talk about the moon.
Yeah.
This season of Ancient Aliens, will there be new reveals about the moon?
I believe there are. I'm trying to remember some of the topics of the shows that are coming up. And one that I failed to mention last week that I find to be very interesting is about Africa. I don't think we've explored that continent at all, or at least if we have, very, very briefly.
Right.
So that's one show that I'm really interested in, and I believe we are going back and discussing the moon as well, because there's so much interest in that. There's so many countries that are sending missions to the moon. I think the U.S. is planning another manned mission or two to the moon. So it's it's something that fascinates me, and I believe we are doing another episode about that.
And why is it that the original astronauts, the Apollo astronauts that went to the moon, when they came back, looked so scared?
Something happened up there. The woman that I spoke to at NASA, she has seen photographs of structures on the moon. She is of the belief that the astronauts were actually watched while they were on the moon, that they saw them being observed by either creatures or something up there. They were not alone on the moon.
How is it possible that with all the ears of Russia and all the ham operators in the U.S., that none of them said, oh, they were being watched, and here's what we heard, and here's the audio tape of it? It would be difficult to imagine that if they were being watched or heard something or saw something that scared them, which I believe could have happened. But I'd like to know, with all the ears on that, especially on that mission, that nobody else in the world said, oh, we heard what happened.
Well, I told you about the mission with Gene Evans. Ron Evans. That he actually took photographs of the object that followed him, drew pictures of it, and video of it. Why have we not seen that? I don't know if he ever really discussed it publicly, but I know that this person that I know discussed it with him, was privy to the conversations, and listened to the conversation between him and Mission Control for 8+ hours about what he was seeing.
It's amazing that no one at Mission Control for 8 hours. There were hundreds of people there that heard those transmissions. And
well, no, that's not true. There weren't hundreds of people, because they went to a very, very secure link, and there were just a few people that were privy to the conversation. She was one of them. I asked her, there may have been 8 or 9 people that were privy and part of the conversation, including the astronaut. And she's probably the last one that's alive, because she was in her 20s when it happened. And she's close to 80 now.
You're very generous with my questions and with your answers. Are there other things that are going to happen this season, or that you've shared so far in preparing the shows, that you'd like to share with us? Something that you went, oh, gosh, Walter, I wish we talked about this. This happened, and they're going to share about this, and this episode should be remarkable.
Well, I talked a little bit about the underwater, and I pulled out the script that I had, and it's UFOs. It's about underwater bases and what's happening in the oceans and in the seas, in the lakes around the world are pretty interesting and pretty fascinating. And there's one lake in Russia. I can't remember what it's called, but it's actually the deepest lake in the entire world, and there's all kinds of fascinating aspects of what's happening underwater, that I think is truly, truly fascinating. I mean, we always think about UFOs and looking out into the skies, but there are just as many mysteries that are under the surface of the oceans that I think are quite fascinating, and we're starting to explore.
Any hints as to what we might learn? Like one hint?
Well, I didn't know this, but I think it's the Chinese are actually creating a base underwater so that they can observe what's happening. And it's down, 6,000-7,000 feet under the water. It's going to be almost like like an orbiting lab that's going around. I can't remember what it's called now, the International Space Station, but it's underwater, where you'll have scientists staying there for months at a time to observe what's happening under the water, deep underwater.
Robert Clotworthy, the voice of Ancient Aliens and The Curse of Oak Island Gold. I've got to ask you 2 production questions.
Yeah.
How long does it take you to record an episode?
I set a record the other day, because usually Oak Island takes longer. Because there's just more that I have to do. And a 1-hour episode, I was actually able to knock it out in about 45 minutes. Usually it takes about an hour, even though they book it for 2 hours. And Ancient Aliens, they always book 2 hours. We're usually knocking that out in about an hour, maybe a little over. And that includes our 15 minutes of where we're just kind of getting to know one another, touching base, seeing what happened over the last few days, just relaxing in the studio before we get to it. But we knock them out pretty quickly. I'm really good about getting the words off the page. I find the topics to be quite fascinating. I am as excited going in and doing episode 300 of a show as I am when I go in and do episode 1 or 2. I look forward to it and I'm excited about it. And I feel like I'm the audience. If I wasn't watching the shows, I'd be a fan. And so when I read the scripts for the first time, and the first time I read them is when I'm there on in the set or in the studio, and I find things that just fascinate me, and I just allow that curiosity that I have, or that excitement that I have, or that whatever emotion I may be feeling at the moment to translate into the read. So when I'm doing it, I'm in the moment, and I'm going along with the ride with everybody.
You first see the script when you get into that studio to record?
Yeah. I walk into the booth. They hand me the script. I open up the first couple of pages are the tease that's already there. We've already recorded that. Then I start with Act 1, and I'll look at it. I'll read it out loud once to make sure that I have the pronunciation correct on everything. And then we just go right into it. And usually it's 2 takes. And if we need a third, I'll do it a third, and then we move on. Yeah, so it goes pretty quickly.
You shared with me that when you were a kid, you loved to read stories out loud.
Yeah.
And that's like so many performers, they were born to it. Like so many performers, it's almost a calling that you started when you were 6 or 7 to read stories out loud. And a good friend of mine who's a TV producer, a TV executive producer, when we were talking about the voiceovers for the shows that he produces, he says, it isn't about their voices. It's about the ability to tell a story. And not everybody has the ability to capture the rhythm of a story. Yeah. So between your magic voice and your ability to tell a story and put intelligence into that story, that's a tremendous gift. I talked to, she's going to shoot me for forgetting her name, the woman who usually does the Oscars and the Emmys. And
Randy Thomas.
Randy Thomas, thank God you remember.
Yeah.
I can edit out my part. But anyway, Randy does a lot of things on our show like you do. And I said to her, how do you do that? I said, what % of that is live? And she said, about 80% of it's live. And I said, how do you do it? She says, all day, all night, 2 weeks before, in the house, every second I'm awake. She reads that script because it's such the pressure on that must be incredible. Yeah. Now, you mentioned one other thing about the production when you go in to do it, getting comfortable with each other. Do you have a different crew regularly, or are they always the same guys?
No, it's always the same guys. And it's interesting. Even through COVID, when we were recording, we did a couple of sessions remotely, but we tried to get into the studio as much as possible. So it's kind of an island of, I don't want to say of sanity, but it's like this really special place where we do the work, and it's usually the same producer. Every once in a while, somebody else will fill in a different producer, but it's a very tight group of myself, the engineer, and 1 or 2 producers, and we've become very, very good friends. So when we go in at, say, 10 in the morning to work on a show, the first 15 minutes we're laughing, we're talking, we're just telling jokes, we're catching up, and getting comfortable and getting ready to be creative and do the job. And then when we go in there, we're amped and ready.
Yeah, well, you do the job. It's fantastic. Robert Clotworthy, the voice of Ancient Aliens and Oak Island Gold, with Walter Sterling on Another Side of Midnight, Red Apple Audio Networks.
It's Another Side of Midnight. It's Another Side of Midnight.
Political humorist TJ McCormick.
Now, to the Bernard McGurk Studios,
Here's TJ McCormack.
The hidden layer of our existence revealed. Walter Sterling from the Red Apple Audio Network.
It's not Morse code. It started with the attack on Iran. It's heard around the world on more than one frequency, not the chair squeaking, not me. But that is the secret code. And I've been assured it's not Morse code. No one is sure what it is, but it started with the attack on Iran. And congratulations to our great president for the attack on Iran. It'll be interesting to see if what the deal is with the Ayatollah's son. Oh, my gosh. I'm like, what? What? 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. We're going to go deeper tonight. We're going to go deeper. We're going to think about that sound and the fact that in 1920, I don't know if you know this, in 1920, 25, 1928, a primary sell for radios to buy a radio set was that you would be able to hear voices of the dead between the signals. Now you hear a lot of the dead on the signals, but between the signals, it was sold as a way to hear the voices of the dead. You got to remember that in the 1910s, 1920s, seances were a huge rage. People believed they could hear voices of the dead. They wanted to hear voices of the dead. And as radio sets improved technically, and they were able to fill those gaps between the stations, it changed our intrigue with the curiosity and the magic of radio. But the same thing is true of television. Your great-grandfather, or in your case, you, remember when there were times of the day where there wasn't anything broadcasting on TV. There was nothing broadcasting on TV. And what was there? There was static, white static. And if you stared at it long enough, I'm told, you could feel and hear and sense patterns that were beyond static. And scientists, in fact, agreed that static that was coming in there was part of the signal of the Big Bang. It was coming to us from billions of years ago because that antenna on your roof, that antenna was not discriminating. It took in every signal, just like our brains take in every signal. But we're going to go in deep tonight, and you're going to hear things that you may not want to hear and that I promise you, you cannot unhear. It's 30 minutes past the hour, 30 minutes past the hour on Another Side of Midnight. Red Apple Audio Networks. I'm Walter Sterling on great radio stations like WGN in Chicagoland, and I have a phone number. It's 800-848-9222. That's your live line. You get to be the media at 800-848-9222 on the biggest all-night show in American radio. Before every station was filled up on television, before cable, it was just a receiver. That TV set was a dumb receiver. It didn't discriminate. It didn't say HD, HD3, MIDI. No, it just had a signal coming in. And those signals made white lines. Those were the signals. That was not the TV set. That was not the tubes. And many a scientist, media scientists, explain some of those signals coming in are remnants of the Big Bang. And in 1920, 25, 1930, between the signals on the radio, it was promoted by Philco, RCA, in their ads. One of the great things, in addition to these operas and these farm reports, you'll be able to hear voices of the dead. You imagine that? Tonight we have a lot going on. I have too much going on. We're going to hear about the profound and astonishing ancient family tree work done on Hitler. We're going to take a look at why exactly did NBC's Meet the Press Tim Russert die when he did, a young man. Ross Coulthart on this show broke the story, the incredible story about a major general, 65-year-old, healthy as a horse, bicycle racer, major general in his mid-60s, went out of his house at 11:30 in the morning 10 days ago, went for a walk, and didn't come back. Not 11 at night, 11:30 in the morning. Family, wife was home, daughter was home, went out, didn't come back. He left his keys, his watch, and his cell phone. Well, nobody leaves the house without their keys and their cell phone, but he did. He left without his keys and his cell phone, but he took a service revolver. This was a happy guy, but he took a service revolver. He did this a day after President Trump announced that he planned to reveal everything about the UFOs. Trump said, I'm revealing everything about the UFOs. That's coming out enough. And then the next day, this guy disappears. Oh, what was the thing about him? He was the member of the military who knew every single secret about the UFOs. He knew everything about the UFOs. He was that guy. And he disappeared. We're going to hear a story about human chop shops. What? Yeah, human chop chops. And we're going to hear from Michelle Gibson, a journalist, a researcher, about Tartaria. And how was it possible that an entire country, a country at least one-third the size of China, but in fact having states and bases around the world in the 1700s and the early 1800s, how did that disappear? In the 1800s, if you saw a school map, you would see Tartaria. You would hear about inventions, beliefs, buildings, architecture from Tartaria. It disappeared. In 1850, you would see it in school books. In 1950, you saw it nowhere. Why was that disappeared? Why was that unalived? Tartaria. That's coming up. Human chop shops coming up. Ross Coulthart coming up. And what I believe, today when I saw the line in Austin, did you see the TSA line at the Austin airport today? The TSA line at the Austin airport did not go out 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It didn't go to the door of the airport. Sometimes that happens, worst case scenarios. It went out the door and down the block and down another block. It was about a 2-mile TSA line. Well, I'm going to tell you about a conspiracy theory that affects you and me. It affects all of us. And then today was Friday the 13th. And for me, Walter Sterling, ladies and gentlemen, it was Friday the 13th. It was like a Warner Brothers cartoon of everything that could go wrong with you on Friday the 13th. That's what went wrong with me. Every single thing until I came in here to the Red Apple Audio Networks to share with you on another side of midnight. Until this happened, I've had a Friday the 13th day. And the good news, and this is the sure sign that I'm flirting with spirituality, because through most of my life I would have gotten very, very annoyed with all that happened. I would have used different language. None of that happened. I looked, I smiled, I nodded, and I'm like, it's Friday the 13th. And then the proof that Donald Trump is a time traveler. It's not a myth. I believe, and have believed for a long time, that Donald Trump is a time traveler. And you and I will talk about that. My phone number, live line, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Matt in the Bronx, welcome to Another Side of Midnight. Hi, Matt. How you doing?
Yes, good morning. With regards to the Iran war, I would like to just remind the audience that Donald Trump was supposed to be a break from the long line of presidents who have taken foreign policy and elevated it above the domestic needs of the country. What I mean by that is that over the last 20 years or so, I don't think I have to remind you that the neoconservatives who've taken over the foreign policy of both the Democrat and Republican Party have embroiled us in wars in the Middle East that do not serve the national interest, have cost us trillions of dollars of national treasure, and resulted in the deaths of thousands of our men and women in uniform. And again, not in the national interest. And nothing is less true about the Iran war that Donald Trump started in conjunction with Bibi Netanyahu. And again, these men, they have other interests besides the national interest of the United States. For example,
Matt, yes, you were about to give an example. That's what I was going to ask you. Give me an example of their other interests, because I think their countries are pretty much their solid hobby.
Well, with regard to Benjamin Netanyahu, you have to remember he's under indictment in two courts, not only the International Criminal Court, the ICC, in The Hague for genocide and war crimes, but he's also under indictment in Israel, in an Israeli court for bribery and corruption.
What was the deal with him and his wife? What was the deal with him and his wife? Didn't his wife get in trouble?
Yeah, they're both under indictment for bribing.
Isn't our president under indictment? Wasn't our president under indictment?
That's correct. But, Benjamin Netanyahu, he needs this war to have a rally around the flag effect in Israel so that, his personal troubles, like a landing in prison, will be soundly forgotten.
Listen, Matt, this is nice editorial page stuff. It's not really good radio. I like you, and I like the way you speak, and I have let you give your opinion, but it is your opinion, and I thank you very much for calling the Red Apple Audio Networks at 800-848-9222, Another Side of Midnight with Walter M. Sterling. No, these men are obsessed with their countries. They care profoundly about their countries, and I believe that as goofy as he may seem sometimes, as eccentric as he may seem sometimes, the one thing I don't believe about Donald Trump, I believe the man has no malice. I believe the man has no evil. I believe he means it when he says he loves his country and is doing it for his country. And what is my proof of that? My proof of that is his children and his grandchildren. You don't get beautiful, articulate, loving children and grandchildren unless it's clear to them that you're a good man. Grandchildren, that Kai Trump, grandchildren don't adore you unless you're a good person. The measure of any of us is how are our kids doing? In terms of his decisions, everybody makes mistakes. I'm not talking about Iran. I don't think that's a mistake. The other thing that's amazing is I believe he's a time traveler. And the reason I believe he's a time traveler is his uncle. His uncle was the FBI agent or a member of the government that when Nikola Tesla died, the government rushed into that hotel room. They knew where he was. They knew what his health was. They knew where those papers were. They rushed into his hotel room and took all the good stuff. They got it out of the hotel room, got it out of there, got all the good stuff. Well, one of those people was Trump's great uncle. Where did those papers go? Where did those papers go? Are they in the government archive somewhere, or did maybe Mr. Trump say, I'll keep them safe in my basement? I don't know. But what did we see this week? It was either AI or it was true. There was a particle beam that blew up an Iranian ship. There was a U.S. military ship that had a giant light beam on it and blew up an Iranian ship. That was real, right? Was that AI? I should have done more homework on this, but you'll let me know. I know that's the great thing about it. You'll tell me immediately what the deal was. But there's the situation. Where did he get the light beam, the power beam, the particle beam that could blow up a ship? That was one of the projects that Nikola Tesla had always worked on, and that many were afraid he was going to test it and cause trouble, or worse, that another government was going to get a hold of it and test it on us. But Nikola Tesla had a death ray. And what Tesla went through, he was wiped off the face of the earth. The memory of Nikola Tesla was wiped off the face of the earth for similar reasons, maybe the same reasons, as an entire country. An entire country. What did Nikola Tesla's inventions have? It had what Tartaria is claimed to have had. He invented, hold on a second. There we go. Oh, now I'm happier. You want me to be happy. Trust me on this. Tartaria disappears. Nikola Tesla's papers disappear. What were in those papers? What was in Nikola Tesla's papers? The great early 20th century inventor, the competitor to Thomas Edison. What were in those papers? Death beam, wireless energy, the ability to transmit electricity without wires. That he proved. It has been never duplicated. The most any scientists have been able to duplicate was wireless energy that went 7 feet. That was it. Tesla, in Colorado Springs, put light bulbs for acres of fields, ran his experiment, and they all lit up. He was able to demonstrate it repeatedly. Well, that was a problem. You see, Nick, you weren't supposed to be doing that. Tesla, you were not supposed to be doing that. You were supposed to use wires and expensive electricity, which was power plants. And how were the power plants powered? Oh, with oil. Now, the difference between Tesla and Thomas Edison is Thomas Edison was a businessman, and he understood where funding came from and how to make a profit, and his whole ego and life was not wrapped up in inventing. It was wrapped up in inventing and making money with his inventions. Tesla wanted to give them away. He sold the AC motor to Mr. Westinghouse for $850. He sold the patents for the alternating current motor that he invented to Westinghouse for $850 because he didn't want people to have to pay for it. He was like Jonas Salk. Salk invented the polio vaccine, and he could have been a billionaire many, many times over. Did you know this? Salk invented the polio vaccine, did not patent it. He did not make a penny off of it. He wanted the world to have it, and the world did have it. The world did have it because he was pure of heart. That's what he wanted to do. But Tesla was too, but maybe it wasn't his heart. Maybe it was he just didn't think it through. Sometimes geniuses just don't think it through. So Tesla, wireless energy. But then I saw something when I was a kid. We went on a school trip through Thomas Edison's lab in where? Edison, New Jersey. Went through Thomas Edison's lab on a tour. They regularly gave tours of his lab to kids. Maybe you did it too. So we go there, and the lab is a real lab. It was a working lab. It was a mess. It was a mess, and it was fascinating because of all of the, kids, test tubes, things that bubble, Bunsen burners. Those were all the things we loved to look at. Bunsen burner. I would have given anything to play with a Bunsen burner, but Mrs. Sterling did not think that that was a very good idea for an 8-year-old. But at the end of Edison's workbench, there was a glass jar about the size of half a gallon. And at the very end of his workbench was this jar. And in the jar it looked like a towel had been stuffed into the jar. And it was surrounded by black liquid, dark, opaque black liquid, whitish, beigeish towel. I'll never forget this image. Imagine this, a whitish, beigeish towel in a sealed glass jar, surrounded by black liquid. And there it was, just at the end of the thing. And the tour guide explains to us that the last thing Thomas Edison was trying to invent was artificial rubber. Artificial rubber. And you know how they make real rubber? With oil, petroleum products. Edison was trying to circumvent petroleum products. That has never gone well. That didn't go well for the country of Tartaria, Central Asia. It did not go well for Nikola Tesla. History says don't go there. Before the discovery of coal in northeastern Pennsylvania, before the discovery of anthracite coal and the ability to mine it, the way countries were powered, it is believed, is the way Tartaria was powered. It was with wireless electricity that required no wires. And that is why Tartaria had to be taken out. But Michelle Gibson's going to talk about that. Michelle Gibson is a journalist and author, has a great YouTube channel, but she has devoted her life to studying and explaining alternate theories of our lives, alternate theories of existence. And that's coming up on the Walter Sterling Show, and your phone number is, too, at 800-848-9222, Another Side of Midnight, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. I'm Walter Sterling, Red Apple Audio Networks.
It's Another Side of Midnight. It's Another Side of Midnight.
Political humorist T.J. McCormick.
Now, to the Bernard McGurk Studios,
Here's TJ McCormack.
Walter Sterling is actually on the Red Apple Audio Network, including the giant affiliate WABC. Ancient astronaut theorists can't stop laughing. Is it possible that Walter Sterling is actually on the Red Apple Audio Network, including giant affiliate WABC? Ancient astronaut theorists say they can't stop laughing.
But really, is it possible?
Is it possible
What?
that Walter Sterling is actually on the Red Apple Audio Network, including the giant affiliate WABC? Ancient astronaut theorists can't stop laughing.
That's our friend Robert Clotworthy, who shared with us secrets about ancient aliens, information that has not been revealed. But one of the things he did reveal, he revealed it tonight and went into some detail. The new archaeology theory, the new archaeologist theory, is that it is possible because to make all of those stones so perfectly hewn on the outside of those pyramids that they purposely didn't polish up and perfectly hewn all of them. They, in fact, didn't do it for about 3/4 of them. That's why it just looks like a pile like that. And that was done on purpose to make it look older than it is. That's an amazing fact about ancient aliens that Robert Clotworthy has shared with us tonight. 52 past the hour with Walter Sterling on the Red Apple Audio Networks. And Pamela, welcome to Another Side of Midnight with Walter Sterling. Hi.
Good morning. Speaking of alternative theories,
yes,
the Major General McCaslin, who went missing in Albuquerque, New Mexico, you mentioned, is eerily similar to the Nancy Guthrie case. He left keys, a watch, and a smartphone. Could it be the same group trying another victim, since the other victim ended in disaster, so that's why they didn't ask for the money? And they moved on to try another situation because they figured, well, they got away with the other one. Why not try this one?
Arizona, evil place, never comfortable there. It's not normal to have 110 degrees most of the year. But here's the thing, Pamela, did you hear what the Major General left with, what he did take with him?
Well, from you, I just heard. I didn't hear that before, the revolver.
Took a service revolver. Now, the only reason you take a service revolver with you for a casual walk at 11:30 in the morning is if you're going to meet up with somebody and you feel you need to protect yourself, or the worst case possible, that you knew too much, you feel too much pressure, you can't handle it, you decide to unalive yourself. Those are the only two possibilities. I believe about Nancy Guthrie that she got in an argument with a relative over her inheritance, over their inheritance. That was an expensive house she lived in. There was a lot of money in that family thanks to the daughter. And they argued over how much they were going to get from Grandma. They took her home. They were still arguing on the porch. One of them shoved her. She fell down, hit her head, bled on the porch, and they dragged her out. Then they had a problem. They had a problem, which was, we can't be accused of murder. We can't look like it was a murder. And they come up with a wacky plan, like a cartoon, a wacky plan to, I know what we'll do. Let's pretend we kidnapped her. Well, you can't have a kidnapping without a return address. There's no return address, where to send the money to. I can't think of anything stupider to do than to try to get ransom with Bitcoin, easily traced, easily followed. No, you can't cash it in, but everybody else seems to know where it comes from and where it goes. And the amount kept changing. And you can't do a kidnapping unless you can prove you have a live body. Does that make sense, Pamela?
Oh, yeah. We have to think of everything, every possibility. And, in regards to the Edison story, I went there in the early 70s, and the factory was still the same with all those chemicals.
Right.
And then they realized, oh, my, this is rather dangerous. We must clean this up.
They did clean it because I wanted to take my kids there, and then I learned that it no longer is open.
Oh, they actually closed it down. Okay, yeah, and I visited the house, and at the time, an original member of the working staff was giving tours. Oh, my gosh. And, yeah, in this case, my parents took me, and it was fascinating. And his house was fascinating in that, that type of deco, turn of the century look. Yeah. And, the factory really shocked me that all the chemicals were around. And I'm like, isn't this kind of dangerous? Like these chemicals that are
the other thing that shocked me was, exactly, Pamela, and thank you very much for the call. The other thing that fascinated me about his house and his lab was that it was a mess. It was a working lab, but the coup de grace was the very last thing that he was working on, artificial rubber. And then he died. Anytime people get too close to the money or too close to the truth, as you and I are going to discuss tonight when we discuss the human chop shop, we're going to explore that and many other things that you may not want to hear because you're not going to be able to unhear them. You won't forget them. But this is the biggest all-night show in American radio. Coming up, you and I are going to talk to Michelle Gibson. Michelle Gibson, who is an expert on Tartaria, cannibalism of the elite. Many of the things you and I have heard about and discussed this past week that are coming to light. Finally, the truth is being revealed about many things that you and I have always suspected. I will never forget actor Armie Hammer saying that on a voicemail, saying, I am all cannibal. I want to eat you. I want to have 2 of your ribs removed and gnaw on your ribs and suck the meat off your ribs. Now, there's a hell of a line to give a young woman to get her into bed, isn't it? I want to have 2 of your ribs removed. You wouldn't even think of that. You even kidding. It would never occur to you to say something like that. Well, why would somebody say something like that? Because they mean it. Because they've thought it through. That sort of love, my love language I got from my butcher. That's what he was saying. It was like, my love language came from my butcher. That's what he was saying to this poor woman. Walter M. Sterling, Another Side of Midnight. Red Apple Audio Networks. Hey, call 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222.
It's Another Side of Midnight.
Political humorist TJ McCormick.
Now, to the Bernard McGurk Studios,
Here's TJ McCormack.
Walter Sterling, Red Apple Audio Networks. Michelle Gibson, journalist, researcher of alternative theories and alternative universe. Michelle has so much information that I insisted. I said, we just started, Michelle. We have to talk again. And she was gracious enough to say, yes, happy to talk again. There are several topics I want to hit on. I remain fascinated by the fact that there was a country called Tartaria, Michelle, that was about one-third the size of China, not Belgium, China. And in 1840, you could see it on a map. And in 1940, you couldn't. It disappeared. It vanished from maps. And we discussed the fact that it existed and that it vanished and about where it was in Central Asia. But we didn't talk enough about who made it vanish. And why do you think, Michelle, why do you think they made it vanish, Tartaria?
Thank you for having me back, Walter. And the evidence has been hidden right in front of our eyes. We live and work in this infrastructure that was built by a previous advanced civilization. You just have to look at the museums and the cathedrals and the courthouses, and the architecture is far beyond what we said we were capable of in our history, or what we were told we were capable of in our historical narrative. We're looking at buildings that look like ancient Greece and Rome in North America and coming around in the 1800s and early 1900s. We don't build like that today. And it is my belief and a growing community of researchers that are primarily found on YouTube, other platforms as well, but have gotten together with their research in the sense that it's available to find people that are asking questions about clear discrepancies in our world that we haven't been told anything about, that don't make any sense in the narrative when you start looking at what they tell us about these massive buildings. And I've been researching for almost 8 years, and the narrative falls apart when you start looking at it really closely.
Michelle Gibson, the narrative does fall apart when you and I look at massive Gothic cathedrals. We look at Beaux-Art structures that are giant, heavy, and allegedly were put together by people who were walking and riding on dirt roads and didn't have automobiles. You have to go, wait a minute, what? And the other part about they bear no relationship to the buildings that we build today. Usually things get better. The buildings we build today largely are garbage, unless a corporation has insane amounts of money. But in terms of homes, churches, community centers, they look like garbage. We know who erased them. How did they erase them? What were the steps they took? Because you're right, they're right in front of us. These are giant buildings, but nobody says, oh, well, we couldn't have built that. We build this garbage now. That's not part of our narrative today. How did they manage to change the flow of conversation about those buildings?
I believe there was a hostile takeover by dark forces that saw an opportunity and went for it. I believe there was a worldwide energy grid, the civilization known as Tartaria, which was one part, like you said, in Central Asia, but it was a worldwide civilization. And I think the R sound and the Aryan sound in that name speaks to the civilization that we're talking about and the people that we're talking about. I think it was R referred to the people of this civilization, the people of R, and then you have Aryan attached to various civilizations within this, which actually includes Barbaria, which was North Africa. So what we learn about as barbarian, our word for, uncivilized and brutal, was actually a highly advanced civilization in the land where Egypt that we know of is located in North Africa. But it was in North America, it was in South America, it was in places that you don't normally think. It was in Africa, it was in Australia, it was all over the earth. And I believe that energy grid was destroyed relatively recently, and that the surface of the earth that we see today is not what it was before this happened, and that it's been covered up by calling everything natural. And, geologic time and millions of years of slow erosion, all this created the world that we see today, the deserts. And I think this energy grid was destroyed and created that effect of destroying the landscape and giving us swamps and bogs and deserts and dunes. And we have no idea. They've been turned into recreational areas. We go hiking where these places were. But then you find out that there was a rail history everywhere, including in these swamps and deserts. And you still have railroads running through deserts today. You have places where a railroad runs through water. There's a pink lake in Siberia called Lake Berlinskoye, Burlinskoye. You can look that up on YouTube and see a video of a train going through the lake water. You can see photos like in India, between the tip of South India and the upper part of Sri Lanka. There's a train track that it's like the track begins in Sri Lanka right at the edge of the island on the northern side. And then there's sophisticated infrastructure like these bridges, these lift bridges and these swing bridges, which are also found everywhere. They're very sophisticated infrastructure, again, that we're told these places were built in the early 1900s, I think in that example, sometimes in the late 1800s. Super sophisticated engineering. And I'm just giving that as an example off the top of my head where it looks like the land was destroyed where it was. And there's other places as well. So I think they destroyed this, and then they built a new world on top of the ruins of the old world. And that's where you get the New World Order and the New World Agenda. And I think you can look at the 1%, the families, the Roosevelts, the Rothschilds, the DuPonts, the Astors, others as well, that when you look back in the historical narrative, they figure prominently. So they were part of this, but I think something happened which caused this. I don't think it was a natural event. Other people researching look at it being a natural cycle or a cyclic event. I don't see that. I see an ancient civilization that lasted a very long time on Earth, and this happened recently, and they came in, destroyed the infrastructure, and then brought in the replacement fuel sources, the coal and the gasoline from oil. The electricity was brought back online. And I think it was a hostile takeover, and they did it for power and control. And ultimately harvesting those resources as well as our energy, because I do not believe that they're human entities. I don't believe they're human beings that caused this situation to happen.
All right, so this is Michelle Gibson. She's an alternative theory journalist, researcher, and she has solid theories and evidence as to a new world order. And whenever I heard that phrase, and maybe you too, when you heard about a new world order, in my fragile brain, I always thought, oh, well, that's going to begin soon. What Michelle Gibson is saying, that began a long time ago, and we're just seeing the beachhead of it. We're just the first or second generation living in the new world order. Practically every president since Eisenhower has used the phrase New World Order in their inauguration speech. And I always thought, well, that's a really interesting, it's not part of the vernacular. People don't walk around saying that. The next question I have for you is, to terraform, to rechange the surface of the Earth, huge project, incredible science, and tons of money. Whose money?
Whatever happened, Walter, I think it's been planned. I think the world that we live in today is inverted from what it was originally. And from the start, when they came in and started rebooting civilization, if you will, they rigged the system so that everything they did made money. They got the canals up and running so they could start transporting coal in Pennsylvania, the Delaware Lehigh corridor. There was the anthracite region was where Scranton and Wilkes-Barre is. They got that coal mined, and they needed to get it to other places. So they're starting there with getting the canals back up and running. They're doing the railroads about the same time. They're getting those up and running so they can start to harvest the coal and the iron ore and all the things they needed for the steel so they could get that going. So, and the last time we talked about the 1850s, and there was a lot going on, and that was about the same time period that the I'm sorry, just my mind blanked, that they're getting the railroads up and running. And they're getting streetcars back online. And they're pulled by horses. You see pictures of the earliest streetcars being pulled by horses and mules.
Right.
They needed to get them running, and then they were able to get it electrified. So they electrified the streetcars. And there was incredible streetcar infrastructure in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And then they took it out. And nobody asked, why did they take it out? Why did they take out the streetcars and the subways and the trains? We had passenger service. It was incredible. When they got it up and running, it was incredible. But in that same time period, they were striking oil, again in Pennsylvania, Titusville, Pennsylvania, in the United States. It was Sarnia in Ontario, where the earliest oil was discovered, and they started to process that. They developed the refining techniques to get gas and kerosene. And then Henry Ford comes in with an affordable car. So they get the mass transportation replaced by cars and buses. And they took out the rail infrastructure as soon as they didn't need it anymore. So what's left is primarily for freight as far as railroad goes. Excursion trains, you might have historical things you can take a trip on and relive the past. And, again, this was all over. So it was taken out of most places. And we don't ask the question, why did they take it out in the first place? It was already here.
The answer why is oil and coal, right?
Which goes back to the money. It was a replacement fuel source. So how did they get all this money? That was part of it. Part of it was mills employing people at subsistence wages, and they're producing furniture from the trees they're cutting down everywhere. Manufacturing becomes really big. Again, we're seeing things that in large part have gone away, maybe outsourced to other countries. And so, but it was big. It was big in the late 19th century on through, let's say, middle to the end of the 20th century. And so much of that has been outsourced. So they're creating a new economy that they're making money hand over fist. And people don't, we don't know any better. I'm one generation from working in a mill. If, had I been born to the same parents of my mother's cousins worked in a blanket mill in North Carolina.
Right.
So we all have stories about family that worked in these work settings, factories and so forth. And the big money was made way up the chain, just as an example.
Michelle Gibson, you and I are talking to Michelle Gibson, an expert on alternative theories of our history. Now I'm going to shift this dramatically. One of the big theories and one of the big conversations today that is the result of the Epstein files, which probably should correctly be called the pedophiles. And Michelle, a lot of what's coming out is this annoying theory that the elites, the people with incredible wealth, that in fact pull the strings on all of our cultures, may also have a predilection for cannibalism. Is there anything in your research that suggests that could be true?
Yes. And not only in my research, but anybody that's been following alternative sources of information for any length of time. Epstein and the Epstein Island and this pedophilia problem in the upper echelons has been around for a long time. I've known about it for years, and not from my research, but because I haven't watched mainstream news for anything in a very long time and get my news from social media, which is where you find more of this kind of thing. You don't hear it on the nightly news broadcast. It's not there.
No, it hasn't come up on the ABC Nightly News. My question is, to save about 10 questions, who are they eating?
We're not at the top of the food chain, but this is something that children are targeted by these beings, which, like I said, I don't believe are human. They need human energy, not only the work energy that I was just talking about, but they also need to get it synthetically because they don't have the same thing that human beings have with their soul and their connection to God, I believe. And so they get it in other ways. And so both the cannibalism and the pedophilia, from my understanding, is connected to energy.
And what kind of beings are they? And, oh, by the way, where do they live?
Well, you hear the term shapeshifter a lot.
Right.
I have. I'm thinking maybe you have, and maybe people that are listening to this.
Yes, absolutely have heard shapeshifter. And if they are shapeshifters, then they don't have any problem finding a hotel.
It's something where they look like us. We can't tell. And so there are capabilities that humans probably have to be shapeshifters, like shamans shapeshift. But these are like reptilian beings that can look human. And then there's also the masks. You see a lot coming out about really realistic looking masks. So that's in there too. There's cloning is in there too. So these aren't areas that I know a lot about, that I've encountered this information. But so you have maybe satanic forces, demonic forces. You have negative ET beings, I believe. You hear about the reptilians, you hear about the Greys, you hear about the Archons. And I think they are all involved in what's taken place here. And this is truly a spiritual battle that we're in right now. And they've given it all they have to put this system in place, convince us they don't exist, convince us that there's nothing wrong, and anybody calling it out is a conspiracy theorist and blacklisted, and all these, censorship and all this stuff to keep this information from getting out to the general public so that they can keep doing what they want to do, which is not good for humanity. That's why it was wiped from history, because they don't want us to know who we are and what we're capable of. And they wanted that power and control for themselves.
That's an important point. This is Michelle Gibson, alternative theory journalist, researcher. Michelle, how do I find you online? What's the name of your blog? What's the name of your YouTube channel?
My main blog is piercingtheveilofillusion.com, and my YouTube channel is at Michelle Gibson 8946.
Michelle Gibson, valuable, interesting information on the Red Apple Audio Networks.
It's Another Side of Midnight. It's Another Side of Midnight.
Political humorist T.J. McCormick.
Now, to the Bernard McGurk Studios,
Here's TJ McCormack.
Of our existence revealed. Walter Sterling from the Red Apple Audio Network.
That was very good, Robert, but you sort of stepped on yourself.
The hidden layer of our existence revealed. Walter Sterling from the Red Apple Audio Network.
Another Side of Midnight, Red Apple Audio Networks, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. You become the media, just like Dr. Anthony. What medical or PhD is that in, Dr. Anthony? Is that like a Jill Biden doctorate? Oh, did you see that story about Jill Biden's doctorate? Did you see that story?
I did not see the story, but please, if you want to insult me, just put me in her category.
All right. No problem, because somebody finally acted like a reporter and went back to Jill Biden's college and said, what was her PhD in? They looked and they said, you won't believe this. Why this didn't happen during the president's term, gee, I don't know. But she doesn't have a PhD. She took courses, but she never completed her thesis. She does not have a PhD. She ain't. We knew she was no MD, but now she's no any kind of doctor at all. Oh, my gosh, what a great story. Would have been so useful 2 years ago.
You're absolutely correct. And what she lacks even more than a PhD is the fact that she lacked common sense and a sense of decency to humanity.
What I am disappointed in and shocked about is that after a year of those clowns, of the clown show leaving, the clone show leaving office, what I am shocked about is I thought by now we would have arrested or indicted the person who was saying, yeah, we can use that phony pen to give out pardons, no problem, hundreds of pardons. We can say that those pardons aren't valid and go to court and officially invalidate them, unvalidate them. And who was running it? Why, after a year, don't we know who was running it? And why aren't they up before Congress? What sort of powers did you enact that you didn't have? And, gee, about the bag of cocaine in the locker at the White House, the most secure building in America, where's that name? I don't understand why those easy ones weren't taken. And, oh, by the way, bonus track, what I've never understood about Trump is, as a grand gesture, why didn't he, if he was going to pardon, wouldn't it have been a smooth move for him to have pardoned all of the people in jail on marijuana charges in California put there by Kamala Harris? Wouldn't have that been a cool moment?
You are such a giant thinker. Your critical questions are so in-depth that really I would give you a 4-star rating. I would give anything to have you in my school as a classroom teacher, because my students that had the privilege to have you in the classroom will be stars. They would be on the top of the honor list, because you yourself are a creative, giant thinker, and I want to compliment you.
Yeah, but why'd you call, Doctor?
I called because, number one, we're in crises, and your station, who I love, Mr. Katz, but your station as a whole ignores the fact that public school education in the city of New York is in crises, and no one wants to talk about it. Most people don't want to talk about it, let's put it that way. As an educator, teacher, assistant principal, head of the testing division for the borough of Queens, I know where all the bones are buried. And you know what? Knowing too much got me in big trouble, because I always put children first.
Oh, my gosh. You put children first. Why didn't you expect to be in trouble immediately? You work in a huge bureaucracy, in public education, in any public forum, and you put the product first. You put the priority of the reason that it exists first. What did you expect to happen, Anthony? What did you expect to happen?
You're right. And my wife kept telling me, stop, you're bucking the system. You got what you wanted. You reached the level that you wanted. You're a principal. You took your school from 376 ranking in the city of New York and made it number 7 in the city of New York in 2 years.
Did you hear the feature? Did they play the feature yet that I did about the public school principal? Did you hear that?
No, I'm sorry. I turned it too late.
No, probably not. It's probably coming up. I did a 5 minutes at the top of the hour that you're going to hear about a public school principal, an elementary school principal, that taught me a tremendous amount. I did not realize that public school principals in the city of New York have an extraordinary amount of autonomy. I thought you guys were totally controlled by the bureaucracy, told what to do, but you have a surprising amount of autonomy to make that school great. And what I talked about, and thank you for the call, what I talked about with the principal that I know is she refused to let any kid out of her elementary school if they couldn't read. They had to be reading at grade level, and she had the authority to do that, and she made it stick. But the other things that I learned from her, you'll hear about in just a couple minutes. My phone number is 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. It's 34 minutes past the hour. You and I are on another side, a completely different side of midnight on the Red Apple Audio Networks with great radio stations like WGN in Chicagoland, WGN in Chicago, big sticks. We're on a lot of big stick radio stations like WABC in New York, KDKA in Pittsburgh, KMOX in St. Louis, right there. And they were set up this way. Those 4 stations could cover 2/3 of America, especially at night, 2/3 of America. The reason there were radio stations set up like this with 50,000 watts, no other station on this channel, no other station on their station, was so the War Department could reach the population without interruption. If necessary, the United States government could reach the entire population with 28 radio stations. Now there are only 27 like this, but there are 27 radio stations. If they needed to reach the whole country before the Internet, they could do it with 27 radio stations, including many on the Red Apple Audio Networks. It's a remarkable thing the government, I think it was the last great thing the government did. Just my hunch. Last great thing. Your phone number is 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. You and I were talking with Michelle Gibson, and we were talking about a number of things that I'm going to go over. We're going to go into them deeply. Endless conspiracies, many conspiracies, but I want to talk about one thing before we get there. One of the debate, I want to talk about a parenting thing, and nothing more terrifying than being a parent. There are 2 things that parents don't talk to other parents about, honestly. There are 2 things that we lie about to other parents. We don't tell other parents that our kid still sleeps in our bed. Dr. Spock said, do not let the kid sleep in your bed. Don't let that happen. Dr. Spock was wrong. All 3 of my kids, who are happy and healthy, slept in our bed till they were 11. We didn't push them out. We didn't care. We were too tired. The other thing is, every parent you know, if you say to them, what time do you put your kids to bed? They will lie. Whatever they say is a total lie. And you and I shared some time with Michelle Jerson, who is the host of Passport Mommy. Gives great advice to parents on how to travel with your kids. And with the TSA lines this week, good luck with that. But let's talk with Michelle Jerson. Hi. This is Michelle Jerson. And she has done a lot of observation and exciting conversations about the challenges of the greatest horror of our times, parenting. Michelle, I know that you have ideas and thoughts. I'm going to share with you one experience I saw. Maybe you have an opinion on it, and then I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Sure.
All right. I have a brother-in-law. Now, right there, that's trouble. I don't want any in-laws at all. I don't want anyone in my life with the job title of in-law, but there they are. So I have a brother-in-law who has a 12-year-old son, and his 12-year-old son is an interesting kid. He's not a bad kid. He's just a challenging kid. Sure. And, you know, he demands answers. He wants to know why. I admire that. I also don't have sons, so I don't fully appreciate that. We're at dinner with the entire family. Everybody's at this big table. These are Irish people. All they know how to do is reproduce. And we're sitting and yes, drink. And so we're sitting there, and they're about to serve dinner. And fortunately, I was the only one who saw this. My brother-in-law saw that his son was not trying, looking at, considering eating one of the vegetables on his plate. And my brother-in-law went up to him and said, "You have to try this." And he wasn't going to try it. He did not want to try it. And then my brother-in-law did what I consider the unthinkable to a 12-year-old. He picked up a piece of food and started to shove it in the kid's mouth. You have to try this. Now, fortunately, my wife and I have a very different view of food and kids, which is eat until you're not hungry anymore. We don't care what you eat. There it is. Right. Try it. If you don't want to, you'll try it one day. See you later. That's our point of view.
Yes.
We have done everything we can to not put an emotional charge on eating. And I think that's one of the 2 or 3 things we've been successful at. But now my dilemma is, what would you have done with that kid? And what the heck would you say to your in-law?
Yeah. I mean, I probably, as far as what I would say to the in-law, I don't know if I would butt in at that point. I'd probably just sit there and be like, all right, that's his child. He parents the way he wants to, and I'll parent the way I want to. But I would not have done what he did. And I share your philosophy. We try very hard as well. And we always say you don't have to finish what's on your plate. When you're full, you're full. That being said, I end up in the kitchen for 3-hour dinners every single night because my kids want one more course, one more thing. But you know what? I'm happy to do that because thankfully they do like a good mix of healthy things. And, we have the same thing. I say, you have to try it once. I said, you can't tell me you don't like it until you try it once. If you try it once and then you don't like it, fine, don't eat it. You do have to try it one time.
We just never make it an issue because a scientist type made a brilliant point. He said, no child in history has ever died from starvation when there was food available.
Right.
If they're hungry, they'll eat the food. If they're not hungry, they won't. They're not going to die from this. Now, right. Michelle, general thoughts. I know that you work in this field a lot. You have some great ideas about parenting. Why don't you pass along one of them tonight?
Well, let's see. As I'm talking with you, I'm French braiding my daughter's hair. We're getting ready for a birthday party tomorrow. It's past their bedtime by about an hour and a half, and every single night I go through the same thing. I say their bedtime is 8. They get to bed at about 10:30, 11, and I'm out of my mind. So I think the biggest I don't have advice because I am nowhere near a perfect parent and I'm trying to get better every day. But I think the biggest thing you can give kids is your attention and your love and your patience. And that's the best we can do. And we can work to do that the best we can every day.
I will tell you that the biggest lie any parent says, I used to test this in the playground often. I could get a straighter answer out of whether or not they could read or whether or not what their salary was. And I would say to them, hey, what time does your kid go to bed? Mm-hmm. And they say, 8. He goes to bed at 8. And then I say, what about last night? And the answer is always, last night was different. Last night their cousins were in town. Last night there was a special movie on. It's always last night was different. No one tells the truth about when their kid goes to bed. And we never got our kids to bed at 8, nor did we ever get our kids out of our bed until they were 11.
Yes. I'm with you, Walter.
Now, fortunately, science is on our side, Michelle, about sleeping in bed. It turns out that they've studied this, and they have studied this, and it is determined that many positives later in life come out of the security that comes from sleeping with their parents. They have no fear of the dark. They know that they can open the door. They know there's an end to what they know. There's an end to whatever fear they have because their mommy and daddy were right there to end it.
Right. Oh, that's a good point. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, the kid has
judges on this.
Yeah, a kid has a nightmare. I'm glad that she's right there. I can end it. And whereas if they're alone in a room, not so good. But it's a lot of personal choice. But I don't think sleeping alone in your room should ever be punitive. It should be when they're ready.
Right. I agree with you. I really do. And you know what? This is not going to last forever. They're not going to be young forever. And I find it as relaxing, as stress relieving for me too. When I've had a hard day or, I'm really frustrated at the end of the day for whatever reason, if I cuddle up next to them, it helps me relax too. So I love it. And I'm never going to push them out if they want to be there.
Yes, I'm aware of the selfish aspect of letting them sleep in our bed too. All right, so this is Michelle Jerson. How do we find you online, and will you come back on the show again?
I would love to, of course. You can find me. I host the radio show Passport Mommy. It's a syndicated show and podcast, so you can find the podcast on any platform, any of your podcasting platforms.
Michelle Jerson, thank you for being on the Red Apple Audio Network.
It's Another Side of Midnight. It's Another Side of Midnight.
Political humorist T.J. McCormick.
Now, to the Bernard McGurk Studios,
here's T.J. McCormick.
The hidden layer of our existence revealed. Walter Sterling from the Red Apple Audio Network.
Another Side of Midnight, Red Apple Audio Networks, 800-848-9222. Live radio show. You get to be the media just like Mike. Welcome to 800-848-9222, Mike.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to thank you for validating my paranoia about new buildings in New York City. The garbage, they're just basically, in my opinion, slopping the hogs with the new stuff that looks like this weird East German, Soviet, post-war, depressing drab stuff, especially in Williamsburg. And if you go on the BQE, you'll see the Brooklyn Queens Expressway, Highway 278. You'll see on one side, it's like the East German Soviet new architecture by some psychotics who managed to BS their way onto the planning boards versus the beautiful pre-war buildings, all over the place in Williamsburg, which is why people love Williamsburg, because it's like a neighborhood feel to it. And I'm just curious, who are these people on the planning boards? Because they've managed to infest their way into every aspect of our lives with these psycho Soviet communist crapola vibes. But anyway, I got to run. I'm driving the taxi at Kennedy Airport. Everybody loves your show. And just if you could opine on it a little more,
Mike,
I love the fact you brought that out. Yes, sir.
Where's your cab right now?
I'm growing hair in front of Terminal 4 at JFK.
Oh, you'll be there a very long time, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, but I'm flattered anytime anybody who's working in their car, their truck, their 18-wheeler listens to the show. Deeply flattered, Mike. Look forward to your next call. Thank you very much for listening to the Red Apple Audio Networks. Who authorizes these hideous buildings? The answer is, in my opinion, mostly crooks. Whenever I see shoddy construction made out of materials that are right on the borderline of okay, somebody's getting a kiss. Somebody's getting a kiss. Somebody's getting a lick. Only crooks. And it goes on forever. Could you get on a planning board? Are you on a planning board? No, I don't think you are. Do you know how to get on a planning board? No, I don't think we do. For years, I rallied against tolls. I don't believe there should be any tolls on any highway anywhere in America. These roads were built 50 to 75 years ago. The tolls have been collected for 50 to 75 years, and it's a conspiracy. All of the toll road operators in America communicate with each other. They're not isolated roads. They don't operate on their own. They're not part of the community. Anytime you hear anybody say part of the community and they work in government, they are crooks. The thing about the roads is they were paid for 40 to 50 to 60 years ago. Why are they still collecting tolls? Because the tolls are to pay off the bonds that raised the debt that built the roads. They are not there to repair the roads. If your car rams into a divider, a center divider, you will get a bill to repair that divider. You will get a bill. The bulk of road repair for any road is from the gasoline taxes. That's why the gas price is so high. It's not because of what's going on in Iran. You want to see the price of gas go down? That's easy. That same planning board, that mayor, the government, blah, 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 cut the taxes. Cut the gas tax, and you will be astonished at how cheap the gas actually is. The bulk of what you and I pay for when we buy gas is the taxes. That's what that's about. Get rid of those taxes. Just cut them in half, and you'll be like, I'm really happy now. I have no problem paying this. But that's not what it's for. That's what we're up against. Who makes up these hideous buildings? For years, well, actually not for years, about 2 years ago, in the interest of sort of honesty, I was interested. I looked outside. I said, why are we building ugly buildings and houses? There used to be beautiful buildings and houses in average to poor neighborhoods. There used to be government buildings which could have been absolutely functional, didn't have to be beautiful, didn't have to be architecturally advanced or appealing, but they are. Those government buildings with the columns and the Beaux-Arts and the incredible lobbies that were built 100 years ago are magnificent buildings. Where are those? You look at the Carnegie libraries across the country. What Mr. Carnegie built, most of his money went to public libraries and to libraries on college campuses. That's where most of his fortune went, to building libraries. But they weren't just these horrible boxes. They were spectacular because he wanted us to be welcomed and to come into there. Who's building the crap now? The answer is two answers. People getting paid off, and when you and I don't complain. When you and I don't say, really, here's this public announcement about this building being built, this city building being built. This is, the government is building this, and there's a public hearing. Have you ever gone to a public hearing? Have you ever gone to a public hearing? I went to a public hearing for they were putting up a toll. They were going to raise the toll at the Lincoln Tunnel. I went to the public hearing about the toll at the Lincoln Tunnel, that they were going to raise that toll. And it was fascinating to hear what the arguments were about raising the toll. One of my favorite arguments was to cut down on air pollution. Like, what? What do you mean cut down on air pollution? You're going to raise the toll, cut down on air pollution? Yes, fewer people will take trucks and cars into the city and out of the city if the toll goes up. And I stood up, went to the microphone. I said, that's not true. The majority of people who go through the bridges and tunnels with tolls anywhere in America are going through them because they have to. They have to for work, school, they have to. That's why most of them are going there. You added $1 to it, they're still going to have to, and you know it. And you know it. If you want to cut down on pollution at the bridges and tolls throughout the country, get rid of the tolls. Well, now they have the scary scanner tolls, which I hate. I hate them because what fun it is to get a bill every other day. Isn't that the best? A bill in the mail every other day or every day or multiple bills on any given day. That's the best thing. Where's the economy in that? Well, we got rid of the toll takers, those expensive toll takers. Yeah, and what'd you get? Postage, paper, a person having to create those bills, a team of accountants having to review those bills, clerks to send them out, the postage, and then the arguing. Oh, and there's the photo of our car. How nice. And then we argue over that bill. So they have, I promise you, more people sending out the bills by mail, tolls by mail, than they ever did collecting the toll. But the genius of it is that when you and I are not stopped on a highway to pay an outrageous toll, we just are going, and then we get a gift in the mail that says we have an $18 toll. We don't think about it. We don't argue it. We put it back of mind because we didn't have to stop. We are not delayed. We are not in Sunday traffic. We're not in 11 a.m. to the beach Sunday traffic. We're just going, and then 2 weeks later we get a bill. It takes it way down the list of top-of-mind things that we hate about the government. It's, in fact, ingenious. We have agreed to a bill for a product that does not need to be paid, a product that should be free, a product that we already paid for, and now any possibility we would have argued about it, debated about it, that's been taken away because we get it in the mail. Oh, my gosh. 800-848-9222, a live radio show with Walter Sterling, 800-848-9222. Now, the human chop shop. The human chop shop. In the past few months, thanks to the Epstein files, or which should be called the pedophiles, thanks to the pedophiles that have come out, there seems to be a lot of references and conversation and debate about cannibals, that the elite may well have been cannibals, which brings us to the question about where do they get the meat? How do they get the meat? And is there a specific type of meat? Well, it turns out there is. You and I didn't know this, and we don't want to know this, that if a person is afraid, but it's taken to extreme terror, the highest fear possible, there are enzymes released in the blood. And the myth is that those enzymes are the fountain of youth, that the rich people seek those enzymes in human blood that are the result of extreme fear, and only extreme fear. A person has to be terrorized in order to produce those enzymes, and then their blood is sucked out, they're killed, their blood's taken out, and distributed to those who can afford it, who believe the myth that blood with that enzyme will make them younger and braver, that fear enzyme will help them overcome fear. And once they believe that, they will do anything to get it. And you and I in just seconds are going to learn about the human chop shop and about human compost. Where in America there's human compost. And the perpetual myth that there could not possibly be enough meat in America from cows to create all of those burgers at all the fast food joints. And they supplement the meat with us. We'll share that information coming up. My phone number is 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. I'm Walter M. Sterling on the Red Apple Audio Networks. This is Another Side of Midnight.
It's Another Side of Midnight.
Political humorist T.J. McCormick.
Now, to the Bernard McGurk Studios,
Here's T.J. McCormack.
The hidden layer of our existence revealed. Walter Sterling from the Red Apple Audio Network.
Another Side of Midnight, Red Apple Audio Networks. Phone number 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Max, welcome to the Red Apple Audio Networks with Walter Sterling. Hi.
Mr. Sterling, thank you for taking my call. Sure. I couldn't help, I was hypnotized when you mentioned the subject of cannibalism. This is something that's so foreign to me. I have heard whispers of it here and there. My question to you is, how do we find out if the meat we're buying actually has that in it, has a cannibalism food in it? I was naive enough to believe that when something says grass-fed and grass-finished, that is the height of meat that we can get, and we're to believe that that's what's in it. It's pure grass-fed, and then when it's finished with just grass, where the cow is eating just grass. You're letting me believe that there's a whole nother world out there that we don't know about, and I really want to find out what I'm putting in my body.
There are two levels to this, Max. One level is you and I need to find out if there's human skin, bone, muscle in the food you and I eat. We don't want that. There's another level of people who seek it. There's another level, apparently like movie star Armie Hammer.
Paige's social media followers began noticing bruising on her back and thighs.
Did he beat you up?
It was never like that. It was always biting, like slapping, hitting, like, sexual though. It wasn't like the traditional like abuse or anything like that. Ultimately, I just wanted to please him, and in that moment, I would have let him do anything, which I think is the scariest part of this.
She also says Hammer literally branded her with the initial of his first name.
Like
he carved a letter into your skin?
Yeah, he did. He just carved an A into me.
It got even more bizarre, Paige says, when Hammer brought up cannibalism.
He would say, oh, I want to remove your ribs. We're going to find a doctor in L.A., and I want to smoke them and eat them.
Yeah, so there's a rich guy, a handsome rich guy, gets some cutie, and she walks down the path with him to the point where he says, I want to remove two of your ribs, Max, and I want to suck on them and eat them. I'm a pure cannibal. We all dismiss that as some eccentricity and depravity in one guy. But he's part of a class. His family's rich, oil rich. It's not the baking powder. Army oil rich. Handsome, elite, movie star. Turns out that it may be a club called the Red Shoe Club. Have you heard about that, Max?
I have heard about it, and I think the restaurant was closed. In L.A., you can look up a cannibal restaurant, and I don't think they've taken it off of the website. It seems that the restaurant is closed right now, or closed down, but you can still find the remnants from when it was listed with Google. So I haven't visited a place like that.
No, you're not going to, Max. Do you understand? You're not going to.
Thank God.
No, but part of the way you and I keep our souls clean, in my opinion, is we can look at this, we can read about it for a while, but when we start visiting it in any form, that's when we start losing who we are. That's who we start losing. Max, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much for listening to the Red Apple Audio Networks with Walter Sterling on Another Side of Midnight at 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. The Red Shoe Club is allegedly a club of elite people, powerful people. You can find photos of the Red Shoe Club. Just search it once, you'll find them. And allegedly, the people who are wearing red leather shoes are part of a membership club, men, part of a club. I don't know if it's formal or not formal, and I don't want to know. But they They are bonded by their desire to eat human meat, blood, human meat. And they are attracted to a very particular enzyme in the blood. And it is the enzyme that we create when we are faced with unspeakable terror. The most horrible things about to happen to us, our body releases this enzyme, releases these hormones. The theory is that if another person drinks those hormones, drinks those enzymes, they will become fearless. They will become omnipotent. And they will tap into eternal youth. Oh, by the way, only if you get it from a child. Only if you get it from a child. Now, where do you get this stuff? There are, through the country, human chop shops, just like automotive chop shops, human chop shops.
Accused of selling bodies and body parts, a trial set to begin in just months. And tonight, new grisly details of what the FBI says really happened.
ABC 15's Nicole Valdez is live. And Nicole, this paints a Frankenstein-like picture.
Yeah, it really does. Katie and Steve, closed for years. This building off 24th Street and University doesn't look like much, but according to new claims in these court documents, the Biological Resource Center was essentially running a chop shop for human body parts, mixing, matching, and selling them in ways we'd never heard of until tonight. Described as unsettling, but it sounds a whole lot worse. One FBI agent revealing what it was really like inside the Phoenix body donation facility. In 2014, he saw everything from buckets of heads, arms, and legs to coolers filled with severed penises when the FBI raided the building.
Confused and angry. We thought this was going to be doing some good.
He even spotted a smaller head sewn onto a larger torso in a, quote, Frankenstein manner.
It wasn't a choice we made. It wasn't a choice any of the families made.
Body parts piled on top of each other inside Biological Resource Center, where families donated their loved ones for medical research.
Discoveries of sickness and disease, maybe come up with a cure.
Some say the company violated everything they promised.
Tragedy that's never resolved. And it just keeps going on and deeper.
The limbs, according to that agent, with no apparent identification. The company sued months after the FBI raided, families claiming their loved ones weren't treated with dignity and respect, a promise written on their own consent forms. The company also accused of selling body parts for profit after saying they'd only use the parts they needed and would cremate the ones they didn't and return them. A torso with a head apparently went for $2,400. A leg about $1,100. They'd even sell knees and feet alone for under $500.
To whom? Who wanted them? It wasn't for medical research. It was to eat. It was snack food. The state of Washington, a couple years ago, had a particularly wacky plan, which is they wanted to create human compost. It's scary enough to deal with compost, but imagine if human compost was legal.
Cannibalism might seem kind of gruesome, and kind of is. I'm going to give you a little background of what got me to this position to run this bill. Back in 2019, I heard that Washington State was starting to do human composting, and that disturbed me. I wanted to address this because what I didn't want to see is bags of compost with human bone fragments. I want to stop it getting into the human food supply. I was on a plane this summer, watched a video of some food show, and the three contestants tasted the food and they had to guess what was in it. It was some kind of a sausage, and one of the options they told these people that was in the food was human flesh.
Can you tell us the 3 secret ingredients that might be found in this amazing sausage that you made for us today?
The 3 secret ingredients that might be found in this sausage are fish liver, human flesh, or shark.
Are those really the 3 ingredients?
Yeah, fish liver, human flesh, or shark.
Is this...
Is there a problem?
Is that...
And there's a stigma surrounding this.
We're good. We will clear it. We're good. Hold on, Brian, please. All right. Thank you, Kev. Thank you very much. All right, Joe, fish liver, shark, or human flesh?
God help you, it better be shark.
All right, 2, what do you think it's going to be?
Shark 2.
Shark?
The liver is like too obvious, and I don't think it's human flesh, so I think it's shark.
Chef Keith, can you tell us what is the secret ingredient in this dish?
Yes, I'm afraid you're both wrong. It is human flesh.
No. No.
Whoa.
That's not okay. That's not all right.
The way our society's going and the direction we're going, this is going to be normalized. There's only one state in the union that it is illegal, cannibalism is illegal, and that is Idaho.
Should your state make cannibalism illegal? Isn't that a remarkable fact? There's one state in America, Idaho, where it's illegal to be a cannibal. Only one. Probably because it didn't occur to any legislature that was necessary, that it was necessary to state that there's a law that you can't be a cannibal, but perhaps not, because you see there is a human chop shop that has enough of a business throughout the country to sell human legs, human meat. There's a business there. Why is there a business there? No good reason. Probably you're going to be told that pig farmers need it. Pig farmers do not need it. Always one of the scariest scenes in any movie, any horror movie, that a victim was running and trying to escape from an evil farmer, and he threw him into a pig pen, and the pig pen ravaged them. Do we know anything about that? But I think we had a very good question, which is, how do we know if there's human meat in the meat? How do we know if there's human meat in the burger? And between now and next Saturday, I'm going to get an expert. I'll get a nutritionist. I'll get a scientist who will be able to tell us how to identify if there's human meat in our burgers. And isn't it something? It's come to that. Isn't that something, ladies and gentlemen? It has come to this. Tom in Jersey, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222 with Walter Sterling. Hi, Tom.
Good morning. Okay, I've heard of this topic in the distant past before, and my question to you is, with every weird topic, there is always a root. And my question, again, is, where did this come from? How did this ever begin? Where is the root of it?
The root of it
are you able to answer this one?
Yes. Tom, I'm a talk show host. We have all the answers. You should know that by now. Okay. Where in Jersey do you live, Tom?
Bayonne.
Hardcore Jersey, real Jersey. If I were to name the quintessential Jersey city, I'd say Bayonne. And I grew up in Maplewood, which I do not consider the quintessential Jersey city. I'm often ashamed of how it's devolved. You don't blame me, do you, Tom?
No.
No. You're in Bayonne, which has the great hot dogs and the great pizza, and it's a Bayonne. And
I hear New York has the best pizza and hot dogs and bagels.
How do you feel about that, Tom? How do you feel about that?
I just feel that I wish that we had the same quality here.
No, there's in America, there are 3 places I'd get pizza. Besides that place in Connecticut we're really tired of hearing about and have never gone to. You've never gone there, have you? You've heard about it, but you're not going to New Haven for pizza. No, there are 3 places. Philadelphia, Jersey, especially North Jersey, and New York City, especially Brooklyn. That's it.
What about Italy?
It's terrible.
You gotta be kidding me.
No, because it's different.
I always thought that was the best.
No, it's different. I
think
indulged.
New York and Italy were the best.
No. Here's the thing. I indulged. I was in Rome one Sunday. I said, I have nothing to do. I have a rent-a-car. I'm going to drive to Margherita, Italy, and order a margherita pizza. Doesn't that sound like a cool idea?
Yes, it sure does. With ice cold beer.
Yeah, I drove 40 minutes. Wasn't far from Rome. Drove margarita pizza, and it was fine, but no better than what you'd get at ShopRite in the freezer.
You got to be crapping me.
But I've saved you a trip to Italy, haven't I, Tom? Thank you very much for calling.
Yeah.
Red Apple Audio Networks, Another Side of Midnight with Walter Sterling. Where did this topic start? Coming up in just seconds, that answer. This is Another Side of Midnight at 800-848-9222.
It's Another Side of Midnight. It's Another Side of Midnight.
Political humorist TJ McCormick.
Now, to the Bernard McGurk Studios,
here's TJ McCormack.
Really? You're kidding.
The hidden layer of our existence revealed. Walter Sterling from the Red Apple Audio Network.
Another Side of Midnight, Walter Sterling, Red Apple Audio Network.
I'm just going to play it once more to clarify things.
The hidden layer of our existence revealed. Walter Sterling from the Red Apple Audio Network.
That's STERLING. By the way, I have an email. It's walter.sterling@WABC Radio. And as a radio geek, it does give me a little kick to be able to say that. Walter.sterling@WABC Radio. I, unlike these other hosts, actually answer every email. James in New York, welcome to the Red Apple Audio Network. Hi, James.
Elon Musk wanted to buy McDonald's, and the owner of McDonald's told him that nobody in his family had ever eaten at McDonald's. None of his relatives, none of his family, nobody had ever eaten there ever. And then he thought about it for about a week, and he decided not to buy McDonald's. The other thing I want to say real quick is I don't know anything about human meat being in McDonald's or anything, but when people buy things that are organic, they're being fooled. I don't know how possibly people could be so stupid to think that beef is organic. I mean, how do they keep the bees from going on flat?
Well, I happen to agree with everything you say, but I only hear every other thing you say, which makes it easy for me to agree with you. Benny, welcome to the Red Apple Audio Networks. Hi, Benny.
Good morning. There are two dishes in New York. Somebody who orders a slice of pizza and then asks for a knife and fork.
They're not New Yorkers. That you know who did that? That crook de Blasio and his wife. They ordered it with a knife and fork.
And then get a hot dog and get a ketchup on top of it. Again, I want to throw that person into traffic. You don't put ketchup on a hot dog.
Well, I think that's like Utah, where it's illegal to be a cannibal. Here, it should be illegal to put ketchup on a hot dog. Benny, I totally agree with you. Do you have any other culinary tips?
Culinary tips? Nope. That's it. Good night. Love you, buddy.
Thank you, Benny. Thank you for calling 800-848-9222. Jim in upstate New York. Sorry you're in upstate New York. I went to college in Syracuse. I've escaped. Why haven't you?
I'm originally from New Jersey, Jersey City. We bought a small farm. We bought a small farm in the Catskills because I just love this whole area.
Well, that's really not upstate New York, the Catskills. That's only upstate New York if you were from the Bronx.
You're right. It's more the southern tier. Upstate New York is more Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester, which I'm up in that area a lot,
it's just, too. People go, I swear to God, I can't begin to tell you as an English major how many novelists, American novelists, wrote their novel and then moved to upstate New York to kill themselves.
Actually, it's beautiful where I live. I got into fly fishing back in we live in a little town called Afton. It's literally like Mayberry. We don't even have a stoplight here. I bought a small farm. I'm not a farmer.
Good for you.
I own a diner up here too, but it's closed. I actually have plans to open it like an old school hot dog, hamburger, ice cream place. This is a real diner that I own, but I'm not interested in opening up as a diner. I love the whole 40s, 50s, Nathan's, Callahan's hot dog culture. I actually own a grill that was used in the episode of The Honeymooners. I bought it from the prop company that supplied the props to the 50 shows or Broadway shows. If you look, there's an episode of The Honeymooners where Ralph and Norton open up
Nobody's
a hot
going
dog
to
stand.
look, Jim. Nobody's going to look. But I will compliment you on this, and this is an absolute New York City fact. New York fact. Everybody in New York, everybody knows two people. They know a rich person and somebody who's famous. You have a famous grill. That qualifies.
I have a famous grill. You're correct.
Do you know a rich person who's famous? Do you know a rich person?
I know a rich person who's not famous, who has more wealth than...
No, I wasn't clear. It's my fault, Jim. Do you know a rich person, period? Do you know a rich person?
Yes, I know a few of them, and not many are happy.
and you know a famous grill, which counts as a famous person. There you are. That makes you an official New Yorker.
I actually used to own a pizza place in Newark, New Jersey.
Wow.
And New York does have the best pizza. They really do. I mean, and they attribute the pizza a lot to the water from the Catskills, from the reservoir.
I've always thought that was a lot of crap. I attribute it to the fact that they know how to make pizza better.
They know how to make pizza. Pizza is an art. And it does need to be cooked on a stone and made a certain way with certain ingredients. If you know pizza, you know pizza. You could tell a good pizza. Right. People upstate New York have no idea unless they're from New Jersey. I lived in the Scranton, Pennsylvania area for a while, and there's an area there they call the pizza capital of the world, Pittston, Pennsylvania. They use frozen shells and they use cheddar cheese, a cheddar cheese blend.
Listen, I know that we're no need to bash the people of Scranton. They suffer enough. But listen,
it was a Pittston area.
Yeah, same thing. But listen, one of the secrets of American radio has to do with Scranton, Pennsylvania. I'm going to share it with you, Jim. It's such a bizarre fact, but it is true. It is a radio fact. In the radio industry, the greatest radio station among radio people that there ever was WARM in Scranton. Warmland Radio. The people in radio fight to get recordings of that station because from 1960 to 1975, it had a 50 share of audience. It was a monster radio station. And if I meet somebody in radio, whenever I meet somebody in radio, I go, what was the best station you ever heard? And they always say what you're supposed to say. And I say, what about Warm? All right, yeah, that was incredible. That was the best station. You lived within the confines of the greatest radio station in American radio among radio people. Thank you, Jim. Thanks very much for calling. It's 31 past the hour. This is Another Side of Midnight, Red Apple Audio Networks, featuring WGN in Chicago. The phone number is 800-848-9222. Walter Sterling. Oh, now I get to keep going. Very good. Yes, Michael Harrison. Oh, he's on the phone? Okay, great. Michael Harrison, publisher, Bon Vivant. Michael, good morning. Michael Harrison. Here's the truth.
Walter Sterling.
Here's the truth about Michael Harrison. You ready? I don't know if you can handle the truth. He is my friend with a capital F. And he is the publisher and editor-in-chief of Talkers Magazine, which is the Bible of the talk radio industry. And you, a talk radio fan, can subscribe to it right now. You go to talkers.com. You can ask for it. You can subscribe to it. You'll get it every day for free. And it's worth the trouble just to read about the scandals in the talk radio industry that are not allowed to be discussed on the air, except by me. And then Michael is a broadcaster of note. He's been in the radio industry for longer than I will embarrass him with, but he's respected by his peers, and he's smarter than most of us. Now, Michael also has an interesting perspective and a focused interest on the field of metaphysics. And that gets my attention. And I thought, Michael, you could help us first by sharing which aspect of metaphysics intrigues you most?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the very kind and generous introduction. And congratulations to you on your extraordinary work in radio, and especially what you're doing now. That being said, I find radio to be pretty metaphysical unto itself. When you stop and think about mysterious airwaves, we don't really understand how it works. And voices and music traveling through the air from one machine to another into our brain, and then somehow we make sense of it all. And we take that for granted. We just take it for granted. People say, well, I believe in miracles when I see them. And yet everything is a miracle when you stop and think about it. We're immersed in a miracle. So I don't find my interest in metaphysics to be that far afield from my lifelong fascination with media in general, and especially with radio, because radio is not just a magical process, it's the theater of the mind. So, and one other thing, just to set the conversation, metaphysics doesn't necessarily mean supernatural, although they overlap, or woo-woo. Metaphysics is that boundary between what's kind of known by the scientists, the serious thinkers in the world, and the unknown on the other side of that ever-expanding boundary. Because as that boundary gets bigger, so does the amount of stuff we do not know. For every question answered, there's 2 new questions, maybe more. So I'm interested in that part of science, which is just beyond the grasp of our little Homo sapiens brain. That's to set it up. So what did you ask me? You want to know what people are thinking about in that area?
I want to know which area are you most focused on that you find the greatest fascination. Then I'd like to hear about what people are thinking.
Well, I'm fascinated by consciousness. The physicists, the most hard-nosed, crusty, business-like, scientific, mathematical physicists who would never admit to, acknowledging that maybe there's a God. They think they are God, and they want to eventually figure out the answers to everything. They find consciousness to be what's called the hard problem. We can't seem to, if you'll pardon a bad pun here, or a bad analogy. It's a late show, Walter. The hard problem is we can't quite wrap our brains around what this whole thing called consciousness is. Where do our thoughts come from? Sometimes I think the brain is like a radio, not creating the content or the sounds or the programming, if you will, but picking them up from a deeper level of the universe. That our brain is just a receiver. Because all of our machines are extensions of our bodies, of our biology. So the brain is sort of an extension of a little radio antenna in our head that brings the signals in from who knows where and who knows what. In other words, who knows what the real things are that you and I happen to be having a conversation together. Am I talking to Walter Sterling, or are you talking to Michael Harrison, or are we avatars, bringing in signals from someplace else? So that's my main interest. That's not necessarily what people are thinking about right now all over the world when it comes to the physics and the astronomy and the astrophysics and the metaphysics community. But that's certainly at the heart of it all. It's like, who are we? Where are we? What are we? Why are we here? So as far as what people are talking about, it's a very popular subject right now.
What's
in
that?
terms of the Fermi paradox.
And what is that? What is that?
Enrico Fermi was a great physicist who was having lunch at, I think, Los Alamos with a bunch of other great physicists of the time, and they were talking about the possibility of aliens. And I know that's one of your favorite topics, aliens from other planets, from other parts of the universe, maybe even other dimensions. And Fermi just looked at everybody, a bunch of very well-known scientists, and he said, "Oh, where is everybody? If the universe has been here for so many billions of years, plenty of time to formulate life, and there are billions of stars and planets out there, and the elements of life that we have here on Earth that created this planet full of life are really found everywhere we're looking out there. How come we are constantly greeted, no matter how far we look, no matter what we do, we're constantly greeted with the sound of silence? The universe is silent. We see no signs of intelligent life. We don't even see signs of unintelligent life. How is that possible? And there are all kinds of theories. I mean, hundreds, maybe thousands of theories floating around out there in the internet of people coming up with ideas as to why we don't find life when we peer out into the cosmos. And that I find to be a fascinating pursuit. And it's amazing how many people are obsessed with that question.
When we peer out into the cosmos through the Webb telescope, there seems to be some problems caused by that telescope.
No, that's a whole other angle, and it's certainly a very, very big ongoing story. For those who don't know, the James Webb Space Telescope, named after a major pioneer within NASA, James Webb, and that name Webb gets in the way because people think it has to do with the internet. But the James Webb Space Telescope is by far the most powerful telescope ever made. It's way out there, 1 million miles from Earth in orbit around the sun at a Lagrange point where it stays exactly where it is in relationship to the Earth, and we can, tweak it and aim it at all different places. And we have peered further into space than we've ever seen before. And lo and behold, instead of it confirming what the conventional wisdom among all the scientists out there, and especially the ones that have my interest, are the media scientists, guys like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Michio Kaku and Bruce Green, and the Carl Sagan school of media scientists. In spite of what they've been saying and preaching about the model of the universe, the Big Bang theory, if you will, the idea that the universe is 13.8 billion years old, and they talk about this with, total certitude. Well, let me tell you, they're discovering that maybe the universe is a lot older than that. Maybe there was no Big Bang to begin with. Oh my gosh, they're finding out as they're looking further than we've ever looked before, which is, if you know anything about astronomy, looking into the past. If something is 13 billion years in the past, when we're looking at it through our telescopes, we're seeing it as it was 13 billion years ago. So the James Webb Telescope is not only an optical tool, it's a time machine. And they're finding out that, wait a second, everything we've been discussing for at least the last 100 years might be wrong, which is fascinating because how else are you going to learn if you don't find out what you're doing is wrong? That's what science is about, is to disprove the current model, the current theory. But there is so much money tied up in the current theory in terms of grants, in terms of reputations, and in terms of egos that a lot of today's scientists are having an awful time this last year or so, last 2 years that the Webb telescope has been in action, that they're having trouble dealing with the fact that they might be wrong. And we put so much investment in ego, in time, in work, in money, in textbooks. You think about it, to find out it's wrong, that's a problem. And they're very much like politicians. They talk out of both sides of their mouth. It's really funny watching it.
Michael Harrison, publisher, editor, Talkers Magazine, interested in a profound way in metaphysics. Probably on a daily basis, your thought about where are all the aliens changes. Where are your thoughts today about where are all the aliens?
Oh, I think they're out there. I just think they're too far away for us to have any kind of reasonable relationship with them. The universe is so much vaster, so much bigger, so incomprehensible to our little earth bug brains. We're little bugs on Earth. We have a high opinion of ourselves. And we think that technology is the only way we advance, that if you're intelligent, you make machines. They may be so far beyond us, who knows? But I think that it's not easy to get in touch with these people because they're so far away and there has been such a time differential. They may be existing in a different time and certainly in a different space. So I don't expect them to pop up very soon. And when they do come here, I don't expect them to come in spaceships and land in our antiquated very, very primitive technology. But I think they're out there. Walter, without question.
I've always thought it was funny that there was the belief that alien spacecraft crashed here and that we took them into hangars and took them away. I'm like, no. If they could travel light years to get here, I don't think they'd miss the landing pad. I just don't think they'd have trouble landing. And
Exactly.
So I've always thought that was silly. And that makes me curious as to what do you think is going to be revealed when it's finally revealed as to what we do have in the files for UFOs and aliens?
Oh, I don't think any of it. I think it's possible, but I think it's mostly just our imaginations based upon enterprising, fiction writers. I'm into science fiction, not necessarily fantasy or science fiction. I think that it's very unlikely that most of the theories that are bouncing around right now are actually true. They're interesting, and they could be true. I'm not dismissing them out of hand that we shouldn't be talking about these things, but I think the reality of it is beyond anything we can comprehend. I think that there are we're not the crown of creation in our little Homo sapiens bodies. We are not the ultimate in terms of what life can evolve into. This is my opinion. I may be wrong, but I think that we are still in a very primitive level in terms of biology, and that there are beings out there that we wouldn't even recognize if we were to encounter them, any more than an ant could fully understand what the skyline of New York means. It's just a whole different reality and dimension than they could comprehend or that we could comprehend.
Michael Harrison, editor-publisher, Talkers Magazine, interested, fascinated by a student of metaphysics. Do you have a final thought?
Well, I'm happy to hear you talking about it because there are a lot of people who are very interested in these subjects. There are a lot of subjects out there that people are fascinated by. But I think that this particular subject, science, space, astronomy, physics, and over that fence into metaphysics, strike at the very heart of what human beings are about. And I think that it has a place here. In my main interest in my business is the perpetuation of radio as an important medium, among humans. And I think that talking about what's going on out there in the cosmos plays a role in our understanding of what's going on here on Earth.
The improvement, the physical improvement of the radio set has shut down a lot of the original intrigue about radio. If you look at the ads for radio sets in the 1920s, different manufacturers selling radio sets, what is the benefits of owning a radio set? One of the benefits listed by many manufacturers is that between the stations, you may be able to hear voices of the dead.
Well, I mean, why not?
Why not? And and then, they got better with the tuners, and the tuners got tighter, and the space between the stations got silent, but there was stuff there. And when you were a kid, you probably heard stuff there, like airplane engines. And now that's all gone. But one of the points was you'll be able to hear voices of the dead. I'm like, that would get me to buy a radio set, absolutely.
A lot of people have made a lot of money selling people access to the voices of the dead. The only voices of the dead I've heard on the radio are those that sing "What a long, strange trip it's been." I don't know, but they did find out, without going down a rabbit's hole here, that the background, the microwave background sizzle, the echo of the Big Bang, can be seen on television screens before we had, what we have now with streaming and all that stuff. When you had an antenna and you didn't have a channel, you'd see like snow and sizzle.
Right.
Well, that snow and sizzle is partially composed of echoes of the Big Bang, which purportedly, and I say that with quotes around it and in italics, purportedly took place 13.8 billion years ago, which I don't think is I think the universe has always been here. I think we have no clue about the concept of infinity. But we did discover, to one degree or another, whether it's true, the echo, the sound, the residue, if you will, of the Big Bang in that in that snow and sizzle that you would see on the TV screen. Some of the older folks in the audience will remember when that was a part of watching TV between channels, or when a station went off the air, you'd get and
yes. The older folks in my audience, in fact, remember that vividly. They think it was yesterday. Michael Harrison, Talkers Magazine, thank you for being on the Red Apple Audio Networks.
What a pleasure. Thank you.
It's Another Side of Midnight. It's Another Side of Midnight.
Political humorist T.J. McCormick.
Now, to the Bernard McGurk Studios,
here's T.J. McCormack.
Is it possible that Walter Sterling is actually on the Red Apple Audio Network, including the giant affiliate WABC? Ancient astronaut theorists can't stop laughing. Is it possible that Walter Sterling is actually on the Red Apple Audio Network, including giant affiliate WABC? Ancient astronaut theorists say they can't stop laughing.
Last week and the week before, Ross Coulthart of News Nation, their conspiracy expert, broke on this show the story about the Major General who disappeared 11 days ago. A Major General went out for a walk at 11 in the morning, not 11 at night, and he disappeared. He also was the Major General who knew more about UFOs than anybody else in the military. He was the guy. His disappearance, or worse, his kidnapping, is the highest security risk imaginable. 10 days ago, 66-year-old man, a bicycle racer. He had been in a 25-mile bike race just days before. This was not a health problem. He disappeared. He did not bring his cell phone, and he did not bring his watch, his GPS watch. Ross Coulthart revealed that on this show. Ross will be on again next week with more information on major theories, including time portals. Ross has found that throughout the country, primarily on military bases, there are time portals. He's going to share how he knows, what they do. That's coming up next week. I said, Ross, why can't you come on this week? And he had the only acceptable excuse. His daughter's getting married. But now he'll have more free time, because one of the things fathers of daughters know is that our time is set by our daughters. Our daughters set our agenda. They wake up each day, and they announce, this is what I need. And what do? We say, all right, and we get them what they need. Most of my daughters, all three of them, their needs are met at the Apple Store. Whatever they really need, they get it at the Apple Store. But I'll say, that charger cable, that charger cord, we could get that for $13 at Walmart. We don't need to pay $38 at the Apple Store. No, it's not the same. It's not the same. I'm in radio. I know if it's the same. No, you're wrong. That's how our lives go, gentlemen. Right now, there's a 2.5-mile backup at the Austin airport this evening. 2.5-mile backup at the Austin airport at the TSA line because of the shutdown, some trouble, stuff. Conspiracy theory. Walter Sterling's favorite conspiracy theory. See if this works for you. I believe that the reason TSA lines get longer and longer and longer, and more importantly, the reason you and I are told to get to the airport, you got to get to the airport 18 hours before your flight. Yeah, 18 hours. Get there 18 hours. Whenever I've made the mistake of actually taking the advice about when to get to the airport, I'm sitting there for 2.5, 3 hours with nothing to do. Absolutely nothing to do. And then the plane will leave on time. It's not late. They're happy to take my luggage. But remember, they're only going to take your luggage to check it in 2 hours before any flight. There is no point in getting more there sooner than 2 hours except whenever I do, I feel like an idiot. I have it timed, and maybe you do too, like if you fly a lot for business or fun, I have found that I can time it. I've gotten good at timing it, so I get to the airport, get through security, get on the plane, and have no free time. Airport, security, on the plane, door shuts. I have never missed a flight, even though every airport, every airline would be sure I was going to miss that flight. What is this about? It's a conspiracy. The longer you and I are told to sit in that airport doing nothing, what are we going to do? We're going to buy more overpriced crap. We're going to buy more overpriced magazines. Excuse me, why is this magazine $12? Why is Time magazine $12? Why is the candy bar, the small ones, $2.80? Why do I need a sweatshirt that's $90 that says, woo-woo, airport fun? What? That's the conspiracy. That the airlines are in conspiracy with the airport managers to get us to that airport as soon as we possibly can, as early as we possibly can, because then we're cooked. We're stuck at that airport for 2-3 hours with nothing to do and credit cards. We got those credit cards sitting there, and, oh, well, I've got to sit here for 2 hours. It's not my choice. I might as well buy X. Yes, of course, I'm happy to buy a small bottle of water for $8.50. Absolutely. Why not? Why wouldn't I do that? Yes, I want this egg salad sandwich that's been sitting in this freezer for 4 days with a date expiration that I can't read. Why is it the expiration dates at the airport sandwiches? Why can I never read those? And, yeah, it's worth $18 for an egg salad sandwich. That's what I always pay. Oh, and you can't get a can of soda, and you can't get a normal-sized bottle of soda. There are always these weird sizes that are always a minimum of what? Oh, $6.98 for a Diet Coke. Yeah, that's what I want. It's a conspiracy between the retailers. Oh, you want us to put in concessions? You want us to pay this outrageous rent to be at this airport? No problem. We're going to charge $8.48 for a small bottle of Diet Coke. You want a larger one? You want the 2-quart size? Oh, that'll be $20. It's insane. But it's a conspiracy to get us to the airports earlier, to get us to the airport to spend more money. My goal in any airport, and the biggest problem with every airport renovation is what? They increase the distance between your car or the cab and the gate. Every renovation doesn't make it shorter. It doesn't get us closer from the car to the gate. It gets us further from the car to the gate. Every airport in America, we're renovating the airport. It's going to be beautiful. What is their goal? It's the opposite of mine and yours. Their goal is to make the airport a destination of fine dining and fine spending. I don't want the airport to be a destination of fine dining. Have you ever gone to an airport just for dinner? Yeah, we're not going to. I want to fight with that parking and with that traffic. Absolutely. I want to pay $80 for parking for 2 hours and to go to dinner at an airport. No, absolutely not. No. We have conflicting goals. There's a profound conflict between airport management, airport ownership, airport construction, and ours. Our goal, faster, shorter distance between cab and car and the gate for the airport, for the airline. Our goals are in deep and profound conflict. Spend no money, get to the gate, get on the plane. That's the goal. They don't have that goal. They have conspired against us. Walter M. Sterling, Another Side of Midnight, Red Apple Audio Networks. The greatest gift you and I can receive is a request for help.